So one of the first things that we'll typically go through with clients at the start of the journey is, should they go through a cutting phase first or should they go through a building phase? This will determine the body composition going forward, so it's a really, really important consideration within your journey. A lot of ladies will start and they'll be like, I really want to tone up, I want to look lean, I want to look like I train, but they're unsure as to which direction they should go in first. So today's video, we're going to cover exactly that and exactly which phase you should go into to help you get into the best shape. So if you are new here, I'm Beth and I'm an online coach. I own Bespoke Fitness and we have been helping women for almost 10 years now get into elite shape. Now the majority of ladies that come to me typically have this goal. They want to look toned and they want to look like they train. So it is a very, very common question. Should we go through a diet first or should we start pushing calories and go into a bit of a surplus and spend time building muscle? Now there's two camps of people I would typically advise in different directions, shall we say. So obviously, as I put up here, the people that I would always argue should go into a cut first of all are people that are newer to training, newer to the gym, and are carrying probably a bit more body fat than they'd like. So I'm talking probably in excess of around 20-25% in terms of body fat, and I'll put an image on the chart of like a body fat image chart so you can refer back to this as well, because I don't expect anyone to go and get their body fat tested, but just as a bit of a gauge, really, a bit of a something to go off. I would always ask the question, because if we want to build muscle effectively, we know we need to be at least maintenance calories, if not a slight surplus, to do that very, very well and to do it effectively. Now I would always ask you the question, if you're in a position right now and I was to say to you, do you feel comfortable gaining body fat where you are right now, and your answer is no, it would then be illogical for you to then go into a surplus. Now that's part of the process. You have to accept that at some point, guys, that you'll have to gain a bit of body fat when you're going through a building phase. The starting point for a lot of women typically, I will often find, is that they do want to start a bit leaner before they do push up. On the flip side though, if it's someone that I would argue go into a building phase straight away, would be someone that is very experienced with training. They already know how to push themselves pretty well, and they're already in a pretty good lean body composition. The body's very insulin sensitive, they're in a prime position then to grow. But for the majority of ladies that will come to me, they probably don't have loads and loads of training experience. They might have been going to the gym for years, yes, but their education's not there with training. Their idea of going to the gym is just jumping on machine to machine. They might have done classes for years. There's not been any structure. They don't understand about progressive overload. The knowledge is not there in terms of execution. So to put them into a period where they're going through a surplus when the knowledge on training is not there is quite illogical. As we know, guys, the biggest driver to hypertrophy, so growth, it is what we're doing in the gym. It's to do with our training. So a lot of people just think, well, if I put my calories in a surplus, I'm going to grow. And that's not the case. If you put your calories in a surplus and you don't train hard enough, you don't push to mechanical failure, you don't train like an absolute animal in the gym, the only thing you're going to be accumulating is body fat, right? So it's very, very important that when we're going in a growing phase and we're spending time in a surplus, we're actually in a position where we can warrant the extra food, that we can actually put that food to good use. And that's where learning about training is so important. So I will probably argue maybe 90% of clients that will come to me, I will typically always suggest for them to go into some elements of a fat loss phase to start. Again, before that there might be like a bit of a habit setting phase, a bit of a recomp phase before we do go into fat loss. But for a lot of people, it probably will be. My biggest advice would always be to get lean first, actually see what's underneath. Because again, a lot of people, I get it a lot with females, and they'll say like, oh, I've got big glutes. You actually get a female lean and she's not really got big glutes at all. She's just very genetically gifted that she carries body fat in that area, which is very, very common for females, because a lot of females typically carry body fat in the lower half. I was just not genetically gifted in that degree. For me, my body fat is literally on the lower part of my back. I wish I gained body fat on my glutes more so, but unfortunately that's just not the case. But I would always get lean first, because when you are lean as well, you can see what body parts you do want to bring up a little bit more. So for me, as we all know, if you've been following my social media pages for long enough, my biggest weakness is my shoulders, right? So every single time I'll get lean, it's always a case of, right, let's see how much muscle we've got. Right, in your building phase now, where do we want to kind of like be more specific with programming to bring up them weaker body parts? Because like I said, when people do get lean for the first time, they're probably a little bit underwhelmed with the kind of, you know, the amount of muscle that they do have, or lack of muscle that they have, should I say. Like, it is probably a lot, people have a lot less muscle than they think they do, and that's the reality of getting leaner, especially as a female. Most females, natural females, we don't have loads of muscle unless you're someone that's done a background of sport for years and years and years, whereby, I don't know, like I've got one of my clients off the top of my head, Ella, and she played like canoe polo? So it's a lot of like upper body dominant movements, like very, 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 you know, overdeveloped upper body, loads of thickness, loads of muscle maturity, but that was from playing sports. Like when she dieted down for the first time, she had a lot of musculature in her upper body. But if you're just a normal everyday person that, you know, you grew up, you played a bit of hockey at school, a bit of netball, you went to gymnastics as a kid, but then you never really pursued it, you weren't very, very active until you got into the gym when you was a bit older, when you diet down for the first time, you're probably not going to have a lot of muscle, so you really do need to commit to spending time building it. So in terms of which way would I go first, I would always say for the majority of people, unless you're very experienced with training and you've got a lot of muscle and you're already in a lean starting point, the best point is probably the first protocol to start out getting lean. In that process of getting lean, you should be learning how to train well, how to train very, very hard, how to set the basics with your nutrition, how to eat very, very well, what the structure of your nutrition should look like. Because honestly guys, if you can't do that in like a dieting phase, when you then go and put someone's calories up, a lot of people, if they don't actually build solid foundations, they just think it's a free-for-all in a building phase. And you've probably heard the term dirty bulk quite a lot, right? You know, I'm bulking, and you never hear me ever in my content use the phrase bulking. I will always say a building phase, I will always say an improvement phase, because I feel like a lot of women actually are put off by the fact of building because they think they're going to get bulky. I mean, look at me. Do I look bulky? I absolutely don't look bulky. Do you know what I mean? So, and I actively try to look bulky, and I still, at my point now, I'm not in a position where I look bulky. So I do intentionally refer to it as like a building phase or an improvement phase for that reason. But it's not a case of when you go into a surplus that you just suddenly, you know, ramp your calories up and eat crap. That's not what a building phase is. The same fundamentals and the same principles in a fat loss phase apply to in a building phase. The only difference is you have more food, and it's more of the same food. That's where a lot of people do go wrong. Yes, you might have a bit more flexibility. Yes, you might have an extra meal out a week, or there might be a little bit more, I don't know, dark chocolate in your calories or whatever it may be. You get the gist, guys. But you know, it might just be as simple as in your dieting phase you might be on 30 grams of oats, in your building phase you might be on 60 grams of oats. Like, nothing really should change. And if your coach is putting you in a position where everything's totally different from a fat loss phase to a building phase, you're probably doing it wrong. And the amount of ladies that come to me, like I said, who are fearful of building because they're scared of gaining loads of body fat, and you know, they're scared of looking bulky, that's doing an improvement phase wrong. You know, as a female, if you're gaining like 2 pounds of muscle across a year, that's like max. You know, that's like really, really difficult to do. You know, that's good going. Naturally gaining what, 2 pounds a year in terms of natural muscle, like that's hard. But in order to do that, it's not easy. And why would you then need to accumulate loads of unnecessary body fat to then just gain a couple of pounds of muscle? It doesn't make sense. What, I've gained 10-15 pounds of body fat for the sake of 2 pounds of muscle? It's illogical. So in your improvement phase, guys, you do want to make sure it's very gradual, just like in a dieting phase. You know, in a dieting phase, the majority of people, you're probably aiming for around 1% of your body weight each week on average in terms of like average rate of fat loss. As you start getting leaner, that rate of loss is probably going to come down a little bit. But then in an improvement phase, we're looking for probably around 0.25 to 0.5% increase each week on average. But again, it's very, very marginal, guys. We don't want to be accumulating just loads and loads of unnecessary body fat. It's really not needed. And like I said, the biggest thing that will dictate that as well is what you're doing in the gym. So it's so important that you do really learn to set solid foundations, solid habits, solid routines that you can transfer from fat loss into your improvement phase, so that you can keep it nice and trim. Like, I hate the phrase lean muscle. Like, I hate that, because there's no such thing as bulky muscle or lean muscle. Like, muscle is muscle. There's not different types of it. But in order for us to actually stay leaner in an improvement phase, and that's what people mean when they say lean muscle, gaining lean muscle, they basically mean like staying leaner in an improvement phase. But in my opinion, that's what we should all be doing anyway. There's no need for us to kind of go through this massive phase of feeling really uncomfortable, feeling really self-conscious, because the majority of people that do that, what happens, they want to start dieting again. So no sooner before they're in this improvement phase to actually make changes to the physique, which they've never done before, they get that uncomfortable, they want to diet. So they might have only been in the improvement phase for 12 weeks. And as we all know, like, that's not going to be much change in 12 weeks. So they're constantly then hopping between phases. And one thing I would say to you guys as well, just make sure you do commit to your phase. If you're in a cutting phase, if you're in a dieting phase, whatever you want to call it, commit to getting that phase done. The amount of people that spend the time really, pardon my French, fucking about in fat loss, all fat loss should do, guys, is reveal the amount of muscle or as little muscle that you've got. That's all it's there to do. It's to reveal what you've got. That is it, okay? And the amount of people have more body fat than they think to get off, a lot less muscle than they think they've got. It's crazy. That's probably the kind of big thing with women that I work with. They've got more body fat and less muscle than they think. So it means they need to get all the body fat off, or get the big chunk of body fat off, get the body in a really prime position, get the habits in a really prime position. But the physique that so many women want, they need to build it. That's where the majority of your time should be spent. It's not dieting, it's training really hard, it's improving your relationship with food, because the majority of women that I'll speak to have spent their entire life on a diet of some degree. Weight Watchers, Slimming World, Keto, Cambridge, whatever it is, you name it, you've probably done it. You've probably been up and down, you've probably never fully committed to a phase. You get a bit uncomfortable, you start dieting again, then you need to build muscle, so you put your calories up, then you start panicking, you start dieting again. You need to fully commit to a phase, guys, to get optimal results, and that's really important. And that's where sometimes having that coach in your corner can really make that difference, because what we'll do with our clients, all clients have a coaching roadmap, and I'll show you on the screen what that typically looks like. Everyone's in different phases at different times, and it's all relative to their own journey. But I feel like sometimes that's what had the biggest impact for me. Someone taking the reins away, someone saying to me, Beth, this is what you're committing to. This is the goal that you've told me you want. Here's the exact strategy to get towards that goal. Then I didn't need to think. I literally just executed. So I knew between the months of, January to May, I was in a dieting phase. But then between the months of June to December, I was going through a period of building. Then we might do a mini cut again in the new year. Then it was a case of maintenance calories over the summer. Then I was building again. I always knew what I was doing, and that's the big fundamental, guys, I do believe so many women go wrong with, because they constantly because they don't have the knowledge, they constantly second guess themselves. Oh, I see such a body on Instagram doing this, she's cutting, I should be cutting, or she's building, so I should be building. It really isn't as simple as that, and it's super important that we really do buy into understanding what's needed to get towards that specific outcome. So if you are somebody that is in that process right now where you're thinking, should I cut or should I build? Honestly, guys, please do buy into actually following through with either phase, and I promise your results will be 10x than you've ever achieved before. But take away from this video, if you are someone that's a complete beginner, you're carrying a bit of extra body fat, you probably wouldn't be in a position right now where you feel comfortable gaining a bit of body fat. The answer for you probably is to start doing a mini cut. And again, that kind of length of a dieting phase will be dictated to by the amount of body fat that you've currently got right now. If you're someone that's obviously in a bit of a leaner position, you are a bit more experienced with the training, you may be primed and ready to go into that building phase. So if you need more specifics in terms of advice, what I would do, please don't hesitate to drop me a message on Instagram or drop me a message on my other social media platforms, comment in the below, and I'm more than happy to help. But it's often very difficult without seeing someone as well. So I'd be more than happy to have that discussion with you. And if you are someone that is wanting to get that individual help, again, you know where we're at, and obviously I'd be more than happy to chat through things with you as well. So hopefully this video helps, because this is something that I used to really struggle with myself. Should I build? Should I cut? And I was constantly this flux of never really seeing the progress that I wanted to, and that's why I always resembled this skinny fat look, which again I'll pop on the screen, and that's why I was stuck in this phase forever, being like, what do I do? And the only thing that changed it was when I joined up with my coach Jane, and she was like, right, this is what you're doing, buy into it, suck it up, we're doing this for this period of time. And I was like, right, okay, I just need to buy in. But yeah, I hope this video has been useful, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.